In the quiet of the night, that window unveiled a secret story. Anissa found herself, and destiny spoke. The sound of rain drumming on the roof filled the air, making the atmosphere even darker. In a small village nestled on the mountainside, rain was a faithful companion, especially during the rainy season. Anissa, a 12-year-old girl, sat alone in the living room of the old wooden house that had been in her family for generations. In front of her, a math textbook lay open, but her gaze was divided by the raindrops sliding down the ancient window. The rain continued to pour, and lightning struck like lost flashes of light in the darkness. Anissa felt anxious, especially when it rained heavily like this. She had always believed that rain could reveal hidden worlds. Sometimes, amidst a heavy downpour, she could hear the whispers of lingering spirits. But tonight was different. Anissa felt like someone was staring at her from behind the window. Her eyes fixed on the window, reflecting the lightning flashes, and there she saw an old woman. The woman stood tall with a pale face, her long hair soaked by the rain, and her eyes vacant. Anissa's heart raced. She knew the house was old, and stories about the haunting of the house had become more frequent. It was the first time she had seen something unexplainable by rational means. The woman's face was pale, like that of the undead, and her eyes were empty. Trembling, Anissa gathered her courage to stand and approach the window. But when she got there, the figure of the woman had already disappeared. Anissa tried to dismiss her doubts. It was probably just an illusion, she thought. Maybe the rain and lightning were playing tricks on her. She returned to her book, but her eyes kept being drawn back to the window, now obscured by the rain. The next morning, Anissa told her mother, Mrs. Sari, about the experience. Mrs. Sari, a believer in the supernatural and mystical, listened to Anissa's story with seriousness. "My grandmother used to say that this house holds many memories and living spirits," Mrs. Sari said. "So was the figure I saw last night my grandmother's ghost, or some other spirit?" Anissa asked, her eyes filled with fear. "We'll never know," Mrs. Sari replied, "but believe me, there are many things we don't understand in this world. Ghosts or spirits may be trying to communicate with us." Anissa tried to grasp her mother's words, but still felt haunted by the previous night's experience. She tried to put it out of her mind and focus on her studies, but the image of the old woman continued to haunt her. At school, she had trouble concentrating and couldn't shake her thoughts about the mysterious figure. Over time, Anissa started to feel that the old woman wasn't a frightening ghost, but rather an entity in need of help. She sensed a calling from the figure, a plea for assistance. Anissa felt the need to find out more about this woman and why she appeared at her window. Night after night, Anissa attempted to connect with the old woman. She lit candles and called out to her sincerely. One night, as the rain fell again, the old woman reappeared at the window. This time, her eyes were no longer vacant but filled with sadness. Anissa spoke gently. "Who are you? Why are you here? Can I help you?" The old woman looked at Anissa with hope in her eyes and then suddenly disappeared again. Anissa felt that the figure had a message to convey, but she didn't yet understand what it was. Anissa continued her search for information about the old woman. She went to the village library and began investigating the history of their village. She found a story about an old woman who had died in a massive flood in the village several decades ago. The woman had died without being able to say goodbye to her family, and her body was never found. Anissa felt compelled to uncover this mystery. She kept communicating with the old woman, and eventually the figure began to speak. "I am you, Anissa," the old woman said with a voice filled with serenity. Anissa was astonished. "What do you mean, me? Who are you really?" The old woman replied, "I am your future self. I am the embodiment of you who has lived a long journey. I've come here to give you an important message." Anissa was puzzled. How could this old woman be her future self? But as she looked closer, she started to see the resemblance between their faces. Then the figure began to narrate her life story, her struggles, her happiness, and her sorrows. "I've come here to tell you that life is full of choices," the old woman said. "Every action and decision you make now will shape who you become in the future. Don't let fear or doubt hinder your dreams." Anissa was deeply moved. She realized that she had experienced an extraordinary encounter with her future self. The old woman reminded her to cherish every moment in life and never stop dreaming. That night, the falling rain no longer made Anissa feel afraid. Instead, she felt warm and protected by the message from her future self. She learned to live her life with passion and determination to achieve her dreams and goals. The story of Anissa and her encounter with her future self became a topic of conversation in their small village. Many were inspired by the story and began to see the rain with a different perspective. They believed that rain was a window to another mysterious world, a place where they could communicate with living spirits. Over time, Anissa grew into a strong and wise woman. She followed in the footsteps of the old woman, who in reality was her future self and achieved all her dreams and goals. Whenever it rained, she would sit by the window and speak to her future self, remembering the valuable message she had received. This story teaches us that life is a journey full of mysteries and wonders. Sometimes we may experience extraordinary encounters with our future selves, which provide us with new insights into life and our dreams. And in the falling rain, there may be a window to another world ready to unveil long-hidden secrets. The end.